Hi there, and thank you so much for joining me. This talk is one of a number of talks within a three-part series that I've started where I discuss what enterprise architecture is, how to implement it, and ways to mature an enterprise architecture practice within an organization. This talk is about why every organization needs an enterprise architect. So I want to start with a review. During my last talk, I touched on these 3 points that definitely are benefits to having an enterprise architect. The first one is an enterprise architect will help your organization align projects and ensure business goals and objectives are met. Another key point that I want to add to this is even if your organization outsources your application maintenance or outsources technical projects or development projects, there's a definite need for an enterprise architect because your organization should still have within it that high level architecture, that future vision, that roadmap or that path. They need to stay in control of that so that they can ensure all those projects are aligned. Another benefit of an enterprise architect is for all of these projects or outsourcing, the EA is your conduit back into the organization. They are the ones that link into the business, the information, the data, the application, security, technical infrastructure. You know, it was those groups that helped build out those roadmaps, and they are aware of what is important for the projects to know in order to ensure all of those pieces connect. Another thing that we did discuss was the proactive process improvement based on metrics, and then the cultural change. And if you want more information on that, I join you to go back and watch the previous talk. There's one other point that's really important for what an enterprise architect does and is probably the biggest benefit overall in my eyes. So what an organization doesn't change over time. How they do it, where they do it, it does evolve, and it evolves as expectations change, as industry trends change, as customer staff expectations change, as technology advancements happen. So if I were to give you an example, let's look at you living in your home. Everyone can relate to that. So you buy the perfect little house that works for you at that time in your life, and you go about your day-to-day living in that home. Well, it doesn't take long if you are expecting a child that home may not work as efficiently as it once did. What you may end up doing is converting your office into the baby's room, or adding on a room, or converting a porch, finishing it off so that it becomes a room. What I'm saying is you need to evolve your home in order to support the fact that you have a child coming. It's not only the changing the people within the house that could impact how you live your house. For example, there's always technology advancing. For example, your TV or your home theater, your speakers. And as you watch what your friends and your family and your neighbors are doing, and all the commercials, you might want to upgrade that. Our houses, the older houses, weren't built with that kind of understanding. There's not a lot of outlets in the appropriate places that you might need to accommodate all this. So soon you find you've got extension cords running throughout your house. You've got those plugs that will allow you to plug in more, increase your outlets, things like that. So again, you're still living in your house. You're still entertaining yourself with music and TV, but how you're doing it is evolving based on things outside your control. I could go on and on. There's also the spare room turns into the dumping ground or your garage. So your storage or your closets just aren't as efficient as they once were when you first bought the house, now that you've accumulated stuff. So I guess what I'm getting at is you are still living in your home. You're still sleeping, you're still eating, you're still watching TV, listening to music, but how you're doing it and where you're doing these things does start to evolve over time. In an organization, similar things happen, and it is the enterprise architect that watches for this. This is their job. They watch what's going on within the industry. They watch what's going on in the technical advancements, relating it back to your organization. They walk the business floor and they start to watch for those extension cords, if you will. They'll look at applications similar to your spare room. Are those applications used as efficiently? Is that spare room being used as efficiently as it could be based on how you're evolving? When they recognize these things, they start to do their research as to the underlying issue and is this something we should move forward to? They will then, pose the right questions and do their due diligence, and then of course report back to the executives that this is what they found. Should we move this way forward, and how they could move forward? Depending on those conversations, now what happens is that roadmap or that stepping path that they once had starts to evolve as these things change. An interesting piece is, if we go back to those outlets, if the EA understands that this project is there is a project currently on the go where an electrician is in the house, they could walk into that project or talk to that electrician to see, if we were to pull this into your project, how much more would it cost and how would it impact timelines and resources and stuff like that. This is the enterprise architect's full-time job, to continue to work with that roadmap, continually work with the organization, projects on the go, projects about to happen, to really make sure that all of those dots are connected. Another interesting point to note is, going back to this statement, what your organization doesn't change over time. So these are the types of things that an EA wants documented. These are the types of artifacts that make sense to document because you can reuse them over and over and over again. Going back to your house, the types of things you do over and over again is you entertain yourself, watching TV, listening to music, you sleep, you have a bedroom where you need to sleep, you have a kitchen, a place that you need to eat. It's those types of activities. We don't worry about how we're doing it, or even where we're doing it, because quite frankly, you might be moving bedrooms around. You might move your living room and den into the rec room downstairs. You don't want to document those things as solid as your core activities, your core business activities that you do. By doing stuff like this, and you know what your core business activities are, right away as you start to see these advancements, you could look at ways that you could possibly change how and where they're done. For example, move away from the house or the home space, because I can't think of an example off the top of my head right now, but if you go back to an organization, if you know that this type of functionality or activity is done in-house, and all of a sudden there's a service being offered that's a lot more efficient, you may choose to move that service to being performed outside your organization. You may outsource it for whatever benefits or whatever you're going after at the time. It could be to reduce cost, it could be to reduce vulnerabilities, it could be to increase functionality that it could perform. But by having those activities documented, it's quite easy for the organization to say, what if this particular activity moved out of the organization? What's it going to impact? Because it knows how it relates to those other activities. I can go on and on about this, but to give you that basic understanding, an enterprise architect is a full-time role. It is a benefit to every organization, regardless of your size. As the organizations get bigger, you may need more architects to help support the enterprise architect. As your business gets bigger, you might need a business architect to really be pulling up more information for the enterprise architect, because they just don't have the time to address everything. I think one last statement I want to make is private sector versus public sector. Both cases, there is a strong need for an enterprise architect to be working with the leader of the organization. Private sector is really driven by money, by profits, and it is once that is decided, well, that is a known. It is the enterprise architect that now gears in and looks for ways always to be reducing cost and increasing profit, as well as a lot of the other things that they want to do. You go into the public sector, cost doesn't necessarily drive them as much. It's more about government and mandate, but it's that similar concept. It's like that would be the number one priority driving things. You're looking for ways in the organization to meet the mandate, as well as, you know, to reduce risk and liability, and take care of money, but it's not the number one priority like it is in the private sector. It doesn't matter what drives your organization. Nonprofit, what matters is you do have clear business goals and objectives, and that is what the EA helps you get to. Okay. So, I'm not sure what else I want to add to. So for more information on this topic and all of the other ones that I've discussed, I join you to visit my website, where I'm gonna start to lay all of this out and really dive into the details of how this type of stuff is done, the approaches that I've used over my career. And thanks for joining me, and catch me next time when I'm gonna start to discuss the enterprise architecture team.